so we're going to reread first of all the pages 74 to 77, so Loose Lips Sink Ships. And I'm going to be asking you a couple of questions about it, so make sure you are listening really carefully. So, as I ran down the main street, other people were coming out of their houses. Women still tying on pinnies, old men in undervests, children rubbing the sleep from their eyes. I was glad to find Cliff almost immediately, standing with Queenie on the steps of the post office. I tried to hurry him back inside, thinking the cellar would be a good place to shelter. "Oh, give over, Olive," Cliff cried. "No one else is going in." Incredibly, there was no air raid warden, nor any sign of one on their way. We might as well have been watching a horse race or a carnival procession for how relaxed everyone seemed. Determined not to leave Cliff on his own, I muttered crossly how foolish it was not to go inside. Everyone was gazing out to sea. It was a bright winter's day, the sun so low and glary you had to shield your eyes. Yet the dark shapes of the Luftwaffe were clearly visible in the sky. "If Jerry bombs my cabbages," said a man with shaving foam still on his cheeks, "he'll have me to answer to." "Oh, Jim," Mrs. Moore, who ran the bakery, called across the street. "They're heading for Plymouth, you daft apeth, not your garden." What bothered me was the planes were getting closer and louder. There were 6 of them, one out in front, 2 flying higher, 2 directly below, one bringing up the rear. They flew parallel to the coast, close enough to see the distinctive black crosses on the plane's sides, close enough to be almost level with the long, low platform of rocks on which stood the lighthouse. "Let's go, Cliff," I said again. "In a minute," he shrugged off my arm. "This is the Cat Bananas." "They're German fighter planes, real ones," I said through gritted teeth. "It's not some film at the Picture Palace." I didn't like that he'd used Suki's phrase either, and got it wrong. Someone shouted, "Look, they're turning inland by the lighthouse." Just a few hundred feet above the lighthouse, the German formation was changing shape. "That bleeding lighthouse," said old Mr. Watkins, whose tobacco ration I delivered every day. "Them Jerry pilots are using it to find their way. Look at them, clear as day they are." "Not surprised," Mrs. Moore replied. "It stands out like a beacon." I watched in despair as the first plane turned almost at right angles. The others followed close on its tail. It was obvious that they were, like the man said, using the lighthouse to guide them in. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Queenie bend down and pick something up off the ground. Within moments, the sky above us darkened. Everyone cowered down. I grabbed Cliff and we clung to each other. It was terror on my part, though Cliff was grinning madly. At little more than roof height, the planes went over. You could see numbers on their undersides. The sections of metal held together with rivets. The stench of burning engine fuel made my throat catch. And the noise! It was so horribly high-pitched, I thought my ears would burst. "Jeez," Cliff yelled. You got page 77 as well? Mm-hmm. I couldn't bear to look anymore. It was then I noticed Queenie. She was the only person in the street not cowering. Her arm raised, she was hurling stones at the planes. I don't know if she hit them. It was her face that shocked me more. Glasses askew, teeth bared, she looked almost savage. Once the last plane had gone over, a stunned silence fell. It made the ringing in my ears even worse. Then all at once, everyone was talking in that jokey, shrill way people do when they've been scared and are relieved it's over. Finally, Cliff let me drag him back to the post office, where once inside we started babbling with nervous excitement. If they'd turned their guns on us, we'd all be dead. I snapped my fingers, just like that. It was amazing, Olive. Terrifying, more like. The plane was so close, wasn't it? Did you see what their pilots did? It was like the lighthouse was a signpost or something, telling them where to turn. Did you see what, Queenie? I stopped reddening. Queenie had come in so close behind us, I thought she'd overheard. Luckily, though, she was deep in conversation with Mrs. Henderson. Okay, so somewhere on page 75, there is a phrase that Cliff uses that tells us how he feels about the aeroplanes. Can anybody find it? Find out what the phrase would be. Oh, excellent, yeah?
This is the cat's bananas.
This is the cat's bananas, correct, yeah. What does that tell us about what Cliff thinks about it? And what phrase is it that he's actually trying to use? Leah?
I think it's the cat's pyjamas and it's like really exciting and really top.
Yeah, or the best thing ever, yeah? And originally, that phrase was even something different. So it changed to cat's pyjamas, but he got it wrong and said bananas. But originally, does anybody know what the original phrase was? No? It's got the cat's whiskers. Is the original phrase. This is the cat's whiskers. And that means something excellent. Something really, really good. Because if you think cat's whiskers are really good tools for a cat, they get them out of all sorts of trouble. They use them to measure spaces and things like that, so they are really good. So that's where the phrase came from, and then it changed to cat's pyjamas, and now it's obviously, Cliff has changed it to the cat's bananas, hasn't he? Yeah? So, why were the villagers not surprised about the lighthouse being used for directing planes, do you think? Yeah?
Was it because they had done it before and all?
Had they done it before, or was this the first time it's been noticed that they're doing it?
It's because it's so tall and noticeable that they're using it to
Yeah. What does it say? It says something like, it stands out like
Like
a
a
beacon. And a beacon is a tall light, yeah? So the lighthouse is basically a beacon, isn't it? So it's stood on low cliffs and it's standing up, yeah? So that's why they are not surprised that it's being used as a guider for the planes. I think Miss Wakefield said yesterday, she's asked me to explain this, said that the Luftwaffe was the planes, didn't she? Which it is, but the Luftwaffe is actually the German Air Force. Okay, that's the name for the German Air Force. I just wanted to clear that up for her. Right, so, what I want you to think about now are these two characters, Olive and Cliff, and how they feel about the German planes coming over. But you need to be able to prove it to me using evidence from the text. Okay, so it's okay to say, yeah, Cliff was obviously really excited, wasn't he? But how do we know that Cliff was really excited?
Because it says this is the cat's banana.
Yeah, okay, so Cliff, we could say excited, and then we could quote, this is the cat's, was it cat's bananas?
Yes, yeah.
Cat's bananas. Okay, so that's just one example of how he feels and one bit of proof. What we're going to do now, in your reading books, in your pink ones, you're going to draw a table. Obviously you're going to use a ruler when you do yours. I just did mine really quickly, okay? On one side of the page you're going to put Olive, the other side you're going to put Cliff. You're going to say, read through those pages again, see how they were feeling, write that down. You can bullet point it like I did. I'm not expecting full sentences at the moment, okay? And then find the proof in the book that tells you that. Okay, if you want an extra challenge, which some of you might want to, you can also add Queenie into the mix and do a column for Queenie and think about how she was feeling. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you.